This is my good friend and colleague, Paul Kirschbaum. I'm Leslie Wooten. It's 10:33. Let's get into it. Today's topic, beyond the walls, to go, retail, delivery, what you can do to expand your business. We're trying to first define beyond the walls, and I'll start with my yes or no question for you. Paul, can any business expand beyond the walls?
Yes, in one way or another, yes, they can. Nowadays, yes.
Okay. So what's the definition? What does that mean? We're saying yes, anybody can expand the walls. What does it mean? Is it just creating the option of to go? What does it mean to go outside of the physical walls?
I think it's pick up to go, making that a little more, focusing a little more on that, enhancing that. Delivery, if that's your third party, and retail space. That might be internal or something slightly external.
So even if you take the concept of beyond the walls or think outside the box, we're talking literally. How can you take what you have going on inside your brick and mortar, whatever it is, where customers come to you? How can you now take that beyond the scope of the area, the square footage that you're paying for, and use the surrounding areas to your advantage? How can you get your product outside of the business? How can you get your brand outside of the business? And let's divide it up a little bit. And so for the sake of conversation, let's tackle to go and delivery together. And then let's start talking about retail or even the branding kind of toward the end of this conversation. Fair?
Okay, fair enough.
Cool. So talk to me about the similarities between to go and delivery. What's alike there?
Well, to go and delivery, basically it's almost the same thing as just the vehicle getting to the customer. The customer is either picking it up or it's being brought to the customer, but still being packaged up and usually in roughly the same kind of packaging. Same opportunities for upsell. The really biggest difference is just the delivery, the aspect of moving it from point A to point B, and basically meeting where the customer is at. So that's the difference, is just meeting where the customer is at.
Does your business have to have specific things in order before you can expand your to go? Is it just as easy as putting something in a box?
No, you got to do some competitive analysis. You got to look at your competition. You got to look at what you can handle. That's the biggest one. Like, do you have a place to put the stuff? Do you have the right packaging? Do you have the storage for packaging? Do you want your brand on? Do you want stickers? You can do a stamp. Does your POS can handle it? I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Does your POS integrate with the delivery service? So there's a lot that you need to sit back and kind of look before you just jump into it, so you'll be prepared, because you don't want to flop. You want to build it naturally, but you need to make sure everything is lined up, including, we talked about in a previous episode, is your social media.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that you said you have to have room for everything. And then where my head went was different, because you said you have to have room for everything, and you got to have room for the boxes and the supplies and everything to be able to handle that. And when you said you have to have room for everything, I'm thinking for all the people in your business that are sitting and dining and eating, now you have to have the capacity and the room to serve people outside. So your kitchen has to be able to handle that supply as well. And I think it aligns with what you were saying. But when you said room, I'm thinking the room like total covers, because you could expand total covers a night by 2, 3, 4, infinite, because now you're no longer limited to the 60, 70, 80 seats that you might have in your establishment. Now it's, who knows how far it can go, and you have to be able to handle that when those orders start coming in.
Yeah, the kitchen needs to be able to handle it. And then we haven't even touched on training, because that's a whole nother ball game, or even hiring staff just for that. But I think the biggest hurdle I see is the kitchen. Kitchen is usually designed, if it's designed well, it's designed for a certain amount of heads or seats in their physical between the walls. Yeah. So when you get a wrench thrown out, on a Friday night, and you're packed to the gills, and then you get a to-go order for 20, do you have more staff in the kitchen? I mean, so there's that's the stuff you have to think about before doing it, and you might not have the room.
Yeah, if you're an establishment that on a Friday night you're getting slammed, and one to-go order, one extra order is putting you over the limit, you may not be ready for pickup, and you're definitely not ready for delivery. So you got to make sure. Go ahead.
No, but you're right. But with all this, we're missing a thing. You don't have to do Friday night delivery or pickup. You might want to do Sunday night or Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday lunch only,
Mhm.
and run something special. And then there's another thing we'd probably be missing or talking down the road is your whole menu should not be to go or for
Uh,
delivery.
why is that?
I mean, I don't want calamari that's been traveling. I don't want French
Uh,
fries. I mean, some French fries are designed for it, but there's
mhm,
like I don't want nachos.
mhm.
It just won't. It doesn't travel well. There's some items that chefs do not want to be put to go because it's your brand again. We don't want to ruin what you have built, especially if this is something new for you. So you have to think about what food should go in there. And from my research, people don't care if you have your whole menu or not. They don't. They just
Yeah.
want good food and
Yeah.
quality, and that's the goal.
Big difference between somebody packaging up the food that they ordered in your establishment and putting it in a to-go box and taking it out, and ordering food with the intention of eating it and having it presented at the same time. So even how you box things matters, because if people are putting their own food in a box, the responsibility is off of the establishment. The food and the quality of the food still matters, but it's some of that presentation that you're putting into the box matters. And to your point, that to go menu matters so much on not only will it travel well, but does it still look right when it arrives? How much is presentation uh, needed to be considered here?
It's as important as it's your brand. I mean, we had two separate. It's not cheap. You have to spend more money. You have to go with what your brand is and what your culture is. If
Mhm.
you're very focused on the environment, you need to use certain packaging. Make sure you have a sticker or a stamp. Put something in the bag that talks about you and the business and other things.
Sure.
I can't believe that how many to-go orders I get that have nothing in the bag, like not even a postcard saying, try this, get this, come in and have 10% off.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Um, and I think that's important. That's all your brand because you spent all this money on the inside of your establishment to give an experience. Well, that experience in a bag. Yes, it costs more money, and that's where it comes. My question to you: do you charge more for delivery or takeout?
I think at the very least it's a service fee if you haven't built it into your current menu. If it's so, let's consider what a lot of people might be listening for is how to expand what they already have, because they're not doing to go or delivery, so they already have a menu. Let's presume that the establishment is going well, operations are doing well, and your customers are used to your menu. So suddenly changing your prices will be noticed by your dine-in customers. So I think some of those menu items, if they're the same ones on the to-go, yeah, you need to charge a service fee, and I think people would expect it for a service fee. If you can get away with just changing the menu prices so that it's built in, I think that's good as well, because then the consumer sees, oh, they're not charging for delivery, but any of us knows that you're obviously being charged for delivery, and we've got to make sure that that's built into the cost somehow or another.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Customers seem willing to pay it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you're asking for delivery. Are you okay with paying for delivery?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in New York. I remember. I mean, you're there now. I mean, we had Seamless Web and Grubhub,
Yeah.
and we had all sorts of kinds, and it was like normal. I worked at a fine dining restaurant, Italian restaurant that we did it. Um, it's just big. It's good money, but we had our own internal delivery. Where it gets tricky is the third party because of the amount that they charge. But you can't think about this like we did 10 years ago. We had to think about, we got to almost do a separate analysis on it because you're not paying for certain things. You're not paying for the cleaning of the bathroom for that customer. Then you
Right.
broke it down per customer.
Right.
There's certain things you're not paying for if they're just grabbing something and leaving. So is it worth it? Because a lot of these third-party deliveries take a big chunk. Between 15 and 30%.
Sure. But before we go, because I want to talk a lot about the third-party deliveries and seeing what's going on there, um, especially if they're taking a big chunk, and then we're already talking about prices. Let's go over the business difficulties in creating delivery for your operations, because
Mm-hmm.
we've already talked about creating a to-go is not the same as allowing somebody to box something up. There's some
Yeah.
challenges there that you've got to address. What are the challenges that you have to do to prepare for delivery within the establishment?
For just delivery,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest challenges for me would be the kitchen capacity, what it can handle, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that as best as you possibly can. Can't prepare for everything, but that's it. Training or pickup station, I guess you could
Mm-hmm.
say. That can be the bartender, or you're gonna have a separate spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big one, technology.
Mm-hmm.
For delivery, technology, your POS system, technology, what integrates, what doesn't. Are you gonna have an iPad instead of that? Are you gonna have a separate printer in the kitchen? Knowing how to shut it down during busy times. There's a lot of that you need to know. And when I
Mm-hmm.
say just technology, it's not literally the physical technology, but the stuff behind it. What can it do? Can it shut
Yeah.
down during Friday? And what is the screen say so we don't tick off our customers? I think a lot of that is the biggest thing for delivery and your brand.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked technology. So this is software and hardware.
Yes.
It, is that? I think some operators get so caught up in, well, it's just to go. It's just people picking it up, and they're not thinking about the capacity of their point of sale. They're not thinking about how difficult it's going to be to have that all built in. Oh, it's just another button. It's not just another button.
It's not, and it needs to be
No.
tracked.
Yeah.
It needs to be
Yep.
tracked. I mean, to me, we talked about categories.
Mm-hmm.
This one day might be a new category, if not already. Some people want to track it completely different, and just hitting a red to go button on the bottom of the check is not going to do it anymore.
No.
Especially because if you're doing both delivery and takeout, you might package differently. I have a customer, which was genius. I walked in. There's actually a gas station that did delivery. He had Grubhub, he had DoorDash, he had Uber Eats, he had all of them, and he had like 5 different iPads, like sit up there, or maybe 4, whatever it was. And he also had his own. Go to your website, and he
Mm-hmm.
had his own delivery. Which to me, I was like, well, why'd you have the other ones? He's like, well, people are using different technology. But then I was like, but you're getting no charge here, and you're getting 25% charge here, 15 there. He goes, yeah, but every single bag that I send out that goes to that third party deliveries, I
Mm-hmm.
put in a little slip that has our website to log in and get 10% off. So I drive people over to my site. So hopefully within 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
they won't be using those, and they'll be just driving out of his thing. He goes, they didn't know about me. I had to get them to
Right.
know about me, and this is how I
Right.
did it. And I built into my budget that 20% that I was getting taken out of it.
This place delivers. How do I know that? Because I'm getting it delivered by something that I'm aware of, which is one of the
Yes.
third parties, and smart enough to put your own ticket in there so that this place delivers. I know that. Oh, look, this place delivers, and it's an easier way to do it. Perfect. Nice transition from what your customers already know into the way you want them to know it, which is a little different. So
Drive your
that's
traffic.
yeah. So that's software, hardware, and we keep diving into that third party like it's inevitable. But there was 2 other things that you mentioned with the creation of delivery, and that was a place to keep everything, whether it's your bartender or at the bar or whatever it might be, and the training behind it. So let's go into a place to keep everything. One of the greatest things I've seen at some of the local sub shops for delivery guys and girls coming in is they've got this alphabetical system by the customer name, and they just walk in and it's set up, and Grubhub walks in, grabs it, and goes. And
Yep.
the trust there is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But it works.
Yeah. I
It
know.
works.
We call it like post pay. Post pay where you don't even have to talk to a customer. They walk in, they grab, and they leave. Starbucks does it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the sandwich shop? I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But you can do that. You can post pay. You can pay at a
Mm-hmm.
kiosk, or you can pay or order up front for the customer with a person. You can pick what you want,
Mm-hmm.
which is great for giving options. And then they have doors. They have actually drive up where they bring it to your car.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one I see growing the most. I mean, you look at the commercials now. I mean, everything from supermarkets, from Target to Walmart to Domino's, they'll come and put it in the back of your car. You don't talk to anybody, and they email you a receipt. You literally don't touch anybody. It's all post pay, but they're just bringing it to your car.
Now you just need a self-driving car to go over there, park, and come back, and you can do whatever you need to in that car. Just kidding.
I guarantee
You're supposed to
somebody's
keep your hands up.
developing it right now.
Yeah.
Somebody's developing all that stuff. I mean, there is like bots that will take, Amazon I'm sure is ahead of this one. Next, drones will be dropping my burrito in my lap.
Please. Any moment now.
Yeah.
But it serves you right to create an area for the customer to come to, that they're not trying to stand in line. They're not waiting at the hostess desk. They're not interrupting your normal flow. You've got to have a notable, recognizable area for them to come to. And for the big box stores, putting it in the parking lot is great because it keeps them out of the regular business. So that might just be a bonus. It seems like a courtesy to somebody who's picking it up, but my goodness, that operator may be like, keep them out of my box. Stay out.
And some operators tell me like, well, this is going to cannibalize my sales. No, it's not. It's just not.
How? What's that?
People sometimes tell me that they feel, well, if I'm doing to go, they're not going to sit down and eat. They're not going to get the beer. They're not going to get checkout, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not what it's about. People just want it for convenience because they're doing it on the way to work or on the way home. It's takeout kind of does, bleed into retail, and we'll get into that. But it's not going to cannibalize your sales. It just helps you build sales, but you need to be prepared for it. Because this back in the day when we first, me and you ran places, and who was your to-go person before? Exactly. Who's the busiest person usually in your restaurant?
Your bartender.
It's like thinking back, I'm like, man, I was dumb. But the thing is, we trusted our bartender because usually a bartender is one of the most seasoned, been around for a while, knows the ins and outs of the whole place. But when they're busy and getting smoked, especially on a busy night, and I've been sitting at bars and seeing them taking to-go orders, I'm like, this is insanity.
Or you think about where's the phone, and you put that responsibility on the host up at the front. And for the most part, that host is an entry-level position, and this person may not have menu training, may not have phone courtesy knowledge, may not have point of sale training. So they're trying to listen to what the customer's ordering and trying to write it down. And they might write it down exactly like the customer asked for it on the phone. And then they go to the bartender, go to the manager, go to the kitchen, like, the customer wants this. And like, we don't have that.
Or we played this game as a kid. Remember the game as a kid where we whisper something in somebody's ear and they whisper around the whole table and it gets back to you, and you said tofu and it comes back to be like motorcycle. Like it's like it's gonna be like you some things get lost in translation. And and then we're not even talking about phone etiquette.
Right. That's yet another training series that you've got to have on how to handle somebody who's calling in, how to walk them through the process of ordering, because people don't always know, and they don't know your menu, and you have to know it better than the people who are ordering to be able to walk them through it. And that's not even the upselling part of it. You can't just tell your staff, answer the phone and take their order and tell them it'll be at the bar. It's not going to be that easy. You're going to fail if you think that this process is going to be easy and you don't take the time to teach your staff what to do, how to do it, and what the troubleshooting might be with people calling in.
Yeah, I can tell you 90% of the time, they don't ask me my last initial. I'm guessing there's a lot of Pauls out there. And I say probably half the time they don't ask me for my phone number. What if you're out of something? Because it happens, and I don't get mad at restaurants that run out of stuff. I don't expect them to be overflow with food and stuff. So if you run out of something, I get it. Just don't do it all the time. But if you don't take down the number, how are you going to contact them? And then they show up and they don't have it. So that's why technology and training and all this stuff you have to think about, so you don't run into these problems, and then all you're going to do is lose a customer, not only from to-go delivery. Imagine if it was a customer that came in all the time and you just ticked them off and they're like, I'm not coming back. You don't want to do that. So it's important to take the correct steps to make sure you're doing it correctly.
All right, so now let's take that dive into the third-party services. Now, I guarantee, looking at the third-party services coming in, they're going to make it seem like it's easy and seamless, and they're going to take care of all the hard work. Do you still have to do everything we're talking about if you hire a third party to take care of your delivery?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My recommendation is if you're gonna bring in a third party, especially if it's delivered, you never want to do delivery. You still got to know the stuff. You really do. You need to know how, and you need talk to many of them. Play them off each other. Get the best price you possibly can. Third parties, it's a whole different ball game. You don't get the money that day. I don't know if people understand that. Like when you have these delivery services, they send you a check at the end of the month. That might be hard for some operators that rely on money right then and there, because we know how tight the margins are. We've been very exposed during COVID.
One issue that we recently had ordering through a third party was that we did not get the correct order. And on the ticket that was on the bag, it was our order, but what was in the bag was wrong. So that tells me that the person who put it in the bag, not the delivery, the person who put it in the bag put the wrong burgers in the bag for us. So we got it, and we clearly got somebody else's order, even though that on there it had our order on it. They did not pick up the wrong bag. But when we called to let them know about it, they said, nothing we can do. You have to go to that third party to get that taken care of.
Yep. And that's
annoying. What that told me? That told me never to order from that place again, because they made a mistake, could not own it, and pawned the responsibility on the third party, because it was not a delivery issue. It was a bagging following recipe, and it just gave the staff there the feeling that they could pawn that off on the third party. You cannot let that third party take over your operations to the point where they're dealing with your customer interaction, they're dealing with guest satisfaction. You've got to control what's going on in your establishment, and you've got to be the one in charge of that third party.
That's a great point. That's a great call out. I 100% agree with you, because that would drive me nuts. Because now you're dealing with like somebody out that doesn't know your restaurant is going to deal with your customer satisfaction. That scares me a lot.
So is it worth the investment?
Personally, not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I'll put it that way. I mean, it has its needs. Depending on where you are in the country, it just matters. I want to say yes and no, both. I want to say both. You have to think of it differently. You can't put the same cost behind it. It's going to change your costing of the plates and of the service. Because we kind of build in, and we don't put labor into food costs, but we still have, we can still track the stuff, how much labor we use per week. And so you got to kind of like, it is a different formula. Do I know that exact formula ever written down? No, but you don't use as much water. You don't use, as much cleaning stuff after they get up. You don't have to worry about certain other things, but then you have to worry about packaging. If you're dealing with a delivery and you're doing that strip, that non-tamper strip, those bags are expensive, like really expensive. But I've seen some cool ideas. Some people put that like packing tape where it has the stripes so they know if it's cut. So there's things you need to think about, but is it worth it? Oh,
I really liked the strategy that your client had about advertising for their own delivery within that delivery. And I see that as a great way to segue into something that is worth it, and using that third party to your advantage on your terms and with your agenda. I think that's a great way to use it. And I think if you're in control of what's happening in your establishment, you're aware of what's happening with the third party, you can absolutely control it, use it to your advantage, and that's when it's worth the investment. I think it's terrifying if you're like, oh yeah, they're going to come in and they're going to do this, I'm out. I'm like, oh no, that's going to be a disaster. So let's pivot real quick. We're talking about beyond the walls, how you can take your establishment beyond the walls. And it's the simple task of to-go and delivery, but it's also retail. And we combine those first two that seem pretty obvious, but talk to me a little bit about how retail actually works into going beyond the walls as well.
Like this retail is basically it's in the brick and mortar, but it's kind of the same thing as almost like a pickup. It's grab and go. It's a soda kiosk. It's take home meal kits.
Mhm.
There's a lot that goes into that, not just the food that's already, you order it, you go grab it. A lot of the stuff is cold that you just reheat with reheating instructions. Um, so because people, we got to meet where the people are and what they are doing. A lot of people are eating off premise. I mean, this is the first time in the last ever in our country's history that people eat out or get delivery more than they go to the supermarket. So we got to meet them. Where are they? Because they're not all our restaurant sales are going through the roof. The reason restaurant sales are going up is mostly by
Delivery.
menu adjustments.
Yeah.
So we got to build sales, and we need to meet where the customer's at. So if there was one to grab like I know a company that just does, I mean, a restaurant that just does picnic baskets. They're on the beach. It makes complete
Mhm.
sense. They have a 2, they have a 4, and they have a 6. And you just grab it and go, and they're just sitting right out front. And I think it is inside the bricks, but they're not consuming it on premise.
Right. And I love that, because if you see that basket out there, you're going to wonder, where is that? How can I get that? And I think you absolutely have to use this to your advantage for not just retail, but the branding side of it. Making sure that that bag doesn't just say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you on the outside of it, that they got at every other spot, that
Yeah.
somehow like take the moment to make sure that your brand, your recognition is there. And I think one of the simplest ways, the solution that I'll give to some operators out there who are like, well, I can't afford that. Great. Buy the simple paper bag, whatever it might be, and grab a Sharpie, find somebody with good handwriting and write thank you on it, something there to personalize it. Make sure that you see your brand leaving the establishment. You've got to find a way. And if you can't get your own branded bags or whatever it might be, write something on there and use it to your advantage, that most people are going to be walking around and having this bag outside of your walls showing off what they just got at your establishment.
Yes. I'll give you a simple one that costs under $100. Okay. You go to, there's 1,000 websites. You get you upload your logo.
Mhm.
They build you a stamp this big, and they send it to you. It costs about $50 depending on the size. Then you get an ink pad.
Stamp. Go.
Even if it's just your number. I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
to me, it's like you don't have to, because most companies nowadays, and this is something that started about 2 years ago, to get branded bagging is really expensive. Not only is it expensive, you have to order a lot. I'm talking like minimum 20 cases that are this big, and where are you going to put them? So some of it's just out of the reach for a lot of companies or a lot of establishments. So think outside the box. I mean, stickers are expensive, so that's why I said the stamp thing all day long. And we had side work. We just stamped. All you do is stamp 10 bags. You don't
Mhm.
stamp 100, just stamp 10, and then you go on and you're done for the day.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I think thinking outside the box a little bit is imperative when it comes to
So
retail.
in order to go beyond the walls, you got to think outside the box. And it's not just
Yeah.
putting your normal food into boxes and bags and sending it out. It's the presentation, the menu design, the menu costing, making sure that you can afford all this, making sure that you're paying for all this, making sure that you're using third parties in the right way, and make sure that you're branding everything so that it's profitable for you. So
Mhm.
what are the 3 things that an operator needs to consider in order to expand beyond the walls?
They need to do a competitive analysis, which is basically looking at their competitors and the customers. What do the customers want? Who's delivering and that kind of stuff. Who's your customer?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the most important thing. Who's your
Mm-hmm.
customer?
Do
And
they
then
want this? Is this you wanting it, or do they want this? Is there a demand
exactly,
for it? Supply
is there
demand. Okay.
demand?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you can handle. That's the other part. I mean, what your operationally can handle in the kitchen, front of the house, space. You might want retail space. You just don't have the space.
Yeah, right. Because there's no bigger missed opportunity than trying to take a chance and your customers thinking it's wonderful, it's exciting, you get it all built up, and then you're not delivering on the promise that you make.
Hmm.
So that's going to come back to bite you at the end. That's
Yeah.
not going to be a successful push. In fact, that's going to be a little detrimental to you. You've got to be prepared for it, and you've got to make sure that your staff is prepared for it as well.
I'm going to give one more example before we
Yep.
wrap up. Something I saw that was just really smart, really, really smart. It was during COVID, because actually this retail stuff is blown up over, I know restaurants are selling flour.
Yeah.
So what I saw was a high-end steakhouse, and they stayed open, and they did a really good job at this. They made packages because why do you go to steakhouses? It's usually a special event or a date night or something like that. So what they did is they built for two. You got two steaks, all the accoutrements, the
Hmm.
mashed potatoes or the baked potatoes, the sauces, all that stuff. But everything was raw, or you needed to cook a little bit. The sauces were
Yeah.
made, but you needed to reheat it, that kind of stuff.
I like that.
What they did in a bottle of wine, they threw in a little card. Yeah, so they had a bottle of wine, two steaks, all the stuff, right? And dessert for two, because a lot of people are missing date nights. They threw in a card that had a YouTube channel with the chef showing them how to cook the steak and add everything together and how to reheat on the video. So they can stick in the kitchen and they can kind of make it together or throw in the grill, whatever they wanted to do, how it was done. And then it had the bottle of wine. And there was another YouTube channel with a sommelier talking about how that bottle of wine fits this steak and pairs with everything. And then they had a coupon for a streaming movie. I was like,
Wow.
it had everything that you would want from home. And so it was kind of cool. It's like, that's outside the box. And that same company also did delivery and takeout only for lunch only of a certain kind of sandwich. One item. That was it. And they didn't make a whole bunch of money, but they maintained. And what do you think is going to happen when they get back to normal? They're going to look at their slow times, and they're going to implement this stuff.
It's going to continue. And that's a great use of taking to-go, delivery, and your retail, your branding, and putting it all together and making sure that each of those is working hand in hand to benefit your establishment beyond the walls, making sure that what you're trying to do moves beyond what you do inside your establishment. Taking that customer experience to them, that's incredible. Great example.
Awesome.
That's fun. All right. Well, so much. Yeah, that's all I got. So much
I think
to
go take a shower.
Yeah. I think it's an insightful message for anyone looking to expand their business. Ultimately, your profits, your staff's abilities. It's going to be huge for anybody who's able to pull this off. Perhaps as an operator, somebody out there has been trying to create something that's beyond the wall, and I hope this helps. There's so many different angles, opportunities. It could be hard to determine where to start, and this might be a good first step for anybody who's looking to expand their operation. So please leave us a comment about a strategy you'd like more information on, or some successes that you've had, or maybe some mistakes you've made along the way to help others out. Be sure to follow our channel, show some love. We'll keep coming back with more strategies and insights to improve your operations. Thanks so much.
Thank you.